Hello everyone and welcome to Sem Rastros. I'm your host Lucy, and this is usually a podcast where I talk about missing people, but not today. If you're wondering how you end up here in this clearly English episode but in this weirdly named podcast, I'll explain to you. Sem Rastros, which means without a trace, it's a Brazilian Portuguese podcast about missing people. I'm from Brazil, and that's my native language. But the reason why I'm doing an English episode today, it's because my husband is American and I have been living in the United States for a few years now. And he was my biggest supporter. He was the one who pushed me to begin this podcast when I thought it was just a fleeting idea. So I decided to do an episode with him. But to make it extra special, it would be about a solved case, because Lord knows how much he hates unsolved cases. And it would be a story from Brazil, which he doesn't know anything about it because even though I'm a true crime fan, I don't really just talk to people about it if I know they're not interested or maybe not as interested as me. The 20th of every month is usually a day where I put episodes in Portuguese about missing people. And if it was up to me, I would just post this episode in another date and just keep going with my regular episodes. But today specifically, the 20th of October is his birthday. So I wanted to give this episode as a gift to him. And I hope he likes it. I hope he really enjoyed participating on the episode. I loved it. It's a little long, not only because I put a lot of details, because I just love details, but also because it's me and my husband talking, and it was great. It was a great experience, and I love to share this little hobby of mine with him. So I hope all of you like it too. I know most people listening to this will be his friends, which is okay. That's what we wanted. His friends always come to me and say, "We know about your podcast, that's so cool, too bad we can't listen because we don't understand Portuguese." Well, I don't want to hear any excuses now. So thank you very much for everyone listening. Thank you, husband, for participating on this episode, and welcome everyone to this special episode of Without a Trace. Today, I'll be talking about the von Richthofen family case. Okay, so even though today's the 18th, the episode is going to come out on the 20th, so we have to pretend it's your birthday.
Very true, very true. Okay.
So I have to say, hi, Jonathan. Happy birthday.
Hello, Luciana. Thank you so much.
Why are you calling me Luciana? Are you mad at me? Okay, Jonathan, welcome to my podcast that you helped me so much to start it, buying my first microphone. Nobody else want to listen to this anymore because you tell everyone that you had bought my first microphone. Welcome.
Thank you, Lucy, for having me. It's been a pleasure working with you these past couple of weeks or months, really. So I'm excited that you invited me to be a part of your show.
So polite. Almost looked like we're business partners.
Well, we kind of are, when you blow up and make some money, I'll be right there with you.
Okay. And lastly, on the podcast Telegram chat, they were asking me if you know any Portuguese. And I was like, well, every time that he meets someone, he always says something. What is that little sentence that you always say?
Oi, tudo bem?
Yeah. And beleza?
Beleza.
So that's it. That's all you know, pretty much. In Portuguese.
Yeah, no, I know a little bit here and there. I mean,
but these are the main one.
Yeah. I mean, how I start a conversation with your people.
Okay, so are you ready for today? For the case?
Yes, I am.
This case is one of the most famous criminal cases of Brazil. I would dare to say the most famous. And my whole research, my whole episode is being based on 2 books written about this crime. I will not be saying right now the name of these books or else I'll just give to you the gist of it. You will understand right away just by the name of the book. So I'll leave the name of the book to the end of the episode. So let me start. In the early hours of Thursday, October 31st, 2002, Suzanne and Andreas von Richthofen, 2 siblings, were coming back home from a night out. It was around 4 a.m. when they got back to their big and luxurious house in Brooklyn. And no, I'm not talking about Brooklyn, New York. I'm talking about Brooklyn, São Paulo in Brazil. This is actually the place where I live in Brazil, which is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this case, since it was so close to home. And a quick explanation is that the Brooklyn neighborhood in São Paulo is divided by two. One of the sides being more commercial with a lot of business and buildings, which is where I live, and the other side is pure residential, and a good one, with big and spacious houses. This is where the von Richthofen family lived very comfortably. As I was saying, the siblings were arriving home from a night out. They got into the main area of the house where the garage and pool are located, but when Suzanne was about to go in the house itself, she froze. The lights were on and the door was unlocked. She gets Andreas and both of them go back to the streets where Suzanne calls her boyfriend, Daniel. He tells her he's on his way, but meanwhile call the police. That's what she does, and at 4 a.m. of what now is Halloween, some cops are sent out to meet her. The cops arrive and meet Suzanne and Andreas outside in front of the house and ask them what they saw. Suzanne says she didn't go in, but she saw the door open and lights on. While one of the cops stayed with the siblings, two cops goes inside to check. On the first floor, living room was normal. Kitchen, normal. Library was a mess. On the second floor, there were 3 rooms. The girls' room, normal. The boys' room, normal. The third room was the parents' bedroom, and it was not normal. The room looked like it had been ransacked with jewelry all over the floor. In the bed, the cops could see the body of a man, clearly lifeless, with a gun on the floor, near where his hand was hanging on the side of the bed. They got closer and realized there were way too many feet coming out of the sheets and noticed there was a second body in the bed. And this body, of a woman, had a trash bag wrapped in her head. These were Manfred and Marisia von Richthofen, the parents of 18-year-old Suzanne and 15-year-old Andreas. Now came the worst part, telling 2 teenagers they pretty much became orphans. When the cop walked back outside, before having the chance of saying anything, Suzanne asks him, "Are my parents okay?" And he says, yes.
Oh, dang. That hurts.
He decided it was best to call an ambulance because there was a chance the siblings would faint or fall ill after receiving this horrible news, so he didn't tell them right away. Suzanne's boyfriend Daniel had just arrived to support his girlfriend and brother-in-law, so the cop pushed him aside and told him, "Daniel, their parents are dead. Can you please break the news to them? I believe it's best if they receive this information from someone they know." Daniel got back to Suzanne and Andreas, did a huddle type of hug, and whispered the news to them. The cop waited. The cop waited for the screams, the crying, anything, but nothing happened. He got closer to the trio, thinking it could be shock, but they get out of the hug. Suzanne turns to him and asks, "What do we do now?" The cop was definitely not expecting that question or that reaction. Not only Suzanne, but all 3 of them just kept talking normally. No dry throat or emotional words, nothing. And they were talking about practical, rational things like the next steps, what they had to do from now on, where they had to go, which is not common after receiving this type of news. People aren't usually rational after finding out a loved one died.
Yeah, that's insane right now. You think for a second if I lost my mom or my dad or...
You wouldn't be thinking about what to do next. You would just be probably in shock.
No. Exactly. I mean, hell, even one of our 3 cats, I wouldn't even know what to do, The fact that these, 3 kids now are pretty much acting as if nothing happened. I don't know if that's the shock hasn't hit, but this is already not starting to sound good.
Yeah. The book goes on to say that in the end, the only person feeling shocked or surprised was the cop, by looking at these 3 people and getting nothing from them. Later that day, the forensic team arrived to inspect the house. Reporters and media started popping up, and you could see that this wouldn't just be one more homicide in the history of Brazil. You mix murder or any type of crime with rich people, and you get a big media case.
So these are rich people, but
Yeah.
like how rich?
Like I told you, Brooklyn has two parts, and the part that they lived is a place with big houses. Nowadays, I believe that their house would be considered big but kind of normal. But back then, it was considered a mansion. People were saying like, oh, these parents, this couple was murdered in their mansion. Their net worth of like properties and things they had was $3 million. So pretty rich.
So yeah, they're a very a very wealthy family. That money could technically or definitely be a factor in
exactly.
The potential of their murder. Yeah.
The forensic people started from the beginning, of course. Front door was fine, no signs of forced entry. The kitchen and living room also fine. In the library, they found all the mess and saw some footprints on the outside of its window. On the second floor, the kids' room were clean, normal, no mess. Andrea's room actually had pillows under his blankets, shaping it up like a human, because he had left the house that night without his parents' knowledge. Have you ever done that?
No, I have not, of course.
Are you lying?
Oh, of course, because, my mom maybe listen to this later. No, but I think every kid in every country of existence has tried this at least once in their life. So
I mean, I have not, especially because I live in an apartment.
Oh wow,
a little bit harder to come in and come out.
Well, I guess I take that back then. I feel like every kid has tried to sneak out at least once in their life.
So far, it looked like the assailants had entered the house through that library window, robbed the place, and murdered the couple. Lastly, the forensic team entered the crime scene. The team leader started with Marizia's body because the trash bag caught his attention. When he untied the knot by her neck and started taking the trash out of her head, he saw there was a towel shoved in her mouth, and brain mass was stuck in her hair. Manfred wasn't wrapped in a trash bag, but there was a towel on his face. The leader thought for a second that this could be a homicide followed by suicide because of the gun next to Manfred, but now he's thinking, if this is the case, who put the towel on his face? No, he knew that most of the time, people who cover their victims' faces or body is because they knew them, they had some type of relationship with them. From now on, the team started doing the minuscule work, which is taking pictures and collecting all and every fiber, DNA prints, everything they could possibly analyze back in the lab. They took over 300 photographs of that house, especially the room, since there was so much blood and brain mass even on the roof.
Okay, wait, so did they both get shot?
We haven't yet gotten to how they got killed.
Oh, okay. I'm already thinking ahead, like, you're telling me that their head is in the bag and there's brain matter on the wall? I'm like, okay, so how many of them got, shot? So.
Good questions. There you go, detective.
I try. I've watched so much Forensic Files because of you, so.
Because of me.
Because of you, yep.
Okay. This part of the book actually comes up with an interesting tidbit. It says that in the United States, the coroner goes to the crime scene with the forensic team to measure the body's temperature to find out what time that person died. So 2 questions for you. Do you know how they do that? How do they measure the temperature on the body, and which place of the body they do this measurement?
Well, I'm not trying to go, I'm going to probably think they go up the butt or something, like a baby.
They make a small incision in the body and put a special thermometer in the liver. And that's because the liver is our most irrigated organ of the body and has less outside interference. So the liver is able to maintain the body's temperature regardless if you're in a hot or cold place. Pretty cool, huh? I did not know that.
I had no idea. I was just thinking the one place that may be the hardest accessible.
Yeah, so it is. The liver, obviously, like I just told you, it's not easy. The coroner has to go to the crime scene. They have to do a little cut on the stomach or something, open up, go to the liver, put the thermometer. So that's definitely not the easy way out. That's just the more correct way. Because that's how they see what time the person died. So what I'm about to say next is corresponding to your answer, which says, when the book was written in 2006, in Brazil and lots of other countries, the method to check body temperature was a rectal thermometer.
Okay, so I wasn't wildly wrong.
No, so you're not wrong at all. The other thing about the rectal, not only is not as good as the liver, but at least in Brazil, they wait until the body goes to the coroner's office. So that can be a few hours later after the forensic team comes to the house and do their job. So we're never gonna know for sure. Of course, they can give an idea what time the killing happened, what time they died, but it's not gonna be as good if they have to wait hours to be transported into a van until they get to the office. Who knows?
Yeah.
Moving on, the team did their job, and their initial conclusion is that they were looking for at least 2 killers, because since the couple was beat to death in their bed, if there was only one killer, one of the victims would have woken up with the noise and at least tried to run. But there was no indication that Manfred or Marisia ever saw the attacks coming their way. So they were beaten to death.
Yeah.
That's why there were brain mass and towels all over their head, trash bags and everything.
If there's brain matter on the wall, then someone really went to work on them. Another terrible sign of like someone pretty sick out there.
So about Manfred and Marisia. Manfred was born in Germany but moved to Brazil when he was still a baby. In the 80s, he got into the hardest public college we have in Brazil, where he studied civil engineering and also where he met Marisia, who was studying medicine. So according to our society views, they were already deemed to be a power couple right off the bat, since they studied in a prestigious college and degrees that usually has good jobs with good salaries. They married and had 2 kids, Suzanne, born in 1983, and Andreas in 1987. In 2002, where our story begins, Marisia was already a renowned psychiatrist with lots of patients, and Manfred worked as an engineer director in a big company, and he was directly responsible for the construction of a very popular highway in São Paulo. And even though Manfred's job definitely looks like the big money job, it was actually Marisia that made more money between them both.
Nice.
But in the end, they both made a lot of money, which gave them the chance to buy a lot in the Brooklyn neighborhood and build their mansion from scratch, where they moved in 2001 and where they came to die in 2002.
Damn.
So they just lived there for 1 year.
Dang, that's terrible.
Going back to our timeline, at 6 a.m. on that Halloween day, Suzanne, Andreas, Daniel, and Daniel's father went to the precinct to file a report about this possible robbery and certain murders that took place in their house. Right away, the cops and the employees from the precinct were like, this is weird. Suzanne was taking a nap with her head on her boyfriend's shoulder, as if her parents had not just been brutally murdered. Andreas was next to them, quiet, looking down, while Suzanne took a nap or shared kisses and hugs with Daniel. Inside the room, while they were giving their statements to the sheriff, Suzanne would say something, stop, and give Daniel a kiss. She actually said, I would like for you guys to go and get the criminals that killed my parents. Then turned to Daniel and gave him a kiss.
And she's already acting mad weird. I don't understand what the kissing is. Like, come on now. Parents just die, you know. I don't think you're gonna be wanting to kiss your boyfriend after every other sentence. That doesn't.
Like comfort, support, I guess.
That just sounds creepy to me.
With everything the detectives saw in the house, plus the siblings' behavior after the fact, they already suspected that the crime was committed by people who knew the Richthofen family. There were several factors for them to believe that, but especially the no forced entry one. After opening the initial report, asking only the basics to Suzanne and Andreas, they brought them back for an official interrogation. They were also preparing to bring other people who were now suspected of the murders, like Suzanne's boyfriend and family, maids that worked in the house, Marisia's patient, and Manfred's co-workers. Starting with Andreas' interrogation, he told detectives how that fateful day was from his point of view. On that Wednesday, October 30th, he woke up at 6:40 a.m. and his dad dropped him off at school. At 1 p.m., Suzanne picked him up, they went home, and had lunch with their mom. At 3 p.m., he went to English class, and at 4, Daniel and Suzanne picked him up, and the 3 of them went to the mall to buy something for Suzanne because her birthday was coming up. They arrived back at home around 5:30, where Suzanne immediately left again to college where she studied law. Andreas says his mom came home from work at 6 and his dad at 7. The parents had dinner at 8, but he didn't join them because he had just ate a sandwich. He stayed in his room watching TV, as a teenager boy typically does. At 9 p.m., his dad entered the room to say goodnight, and at 10, his mom did the same. this was the last time Andreas saw and talked to his parents. At 10:30 p.m., he fluffed his pillows under the blanket to look like he was there sleeping and quietly went to the office room to call Suzanne and ask her to pick him up. Suzanne was with Daniel, and she asked him to go pick her brother up while she stayed back at her boyfriend's house. Daniel did just that. They went back to his place, met Suzanne, and they stayed there for a bit while Andreas rode a type of motorized bike, which was his, Andreas. But since Manfred didn't allow him to have one, Daniel built one for Andreas and gave it as a gift to him, but kept the bike at his place so Manfred wouldn't find out. The couple then dropped off Andreas at a LAN house where he would spend the next hours playing Call of Duty. Do you know what a LAN house is? Is that the same name in English?
I'm not sure.
Internet coffee place, or like, remember in the past where we usually didn't have computers or internet in our house, so we had to go to those places with a bunch of computers.
Oh, it's a internet cafe.
Internet cafe, okay, yeah. And I guess it's the same here, but like you meet with friends or something, and sometimes you play like a game, like Call of Duty, for example.
From what I know, like there used to be internet cafes or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. In Brazil, it's called LAN house, and as you can see, it's two English words, so I don't know why we would do that, and it did not come from USA. So,
okay, yeah.
But that's the name. Even though Daniel was Suzanne's boyfriend, Andreas was the reason they met in the first place, and he loved his big brother-in-law. And this is obvious now in this part of the story, not only because of the bike he built and hid for Andreas, but because on the way to the internet cafe, Daniel told 15-year-old Andreas that after dropping him off, him and Suzanne were going to a motel as his birthday gift to Suzanne. Motel in USA has a different meaning as motel in Brazil. Motel in Brazil is a place only for sex. Not like those little middle of nowhere places for truck drivers to sleep on. It's a sex place.
So he was telling him, yo, we're going to go have sex kind of thing.
Yes,
okay.
But this is your 15-year-old brother-in-law, and you're saying, I'm going to a motel with your sister. So this is not something you tell anyone, like maybe your best friend or something, but you don't really tell this to anyone, especially not your brother-in-law.
This is kind of weird already.
Yeah, but that's how you see, like, they were very close. They really liked each other. They were more than brother-in-laws. They were like brothers. Well, at 2:50 a.m., Andreas calls Suzanne and Daniel and tells them that he's done. The couple pick him up. They go back to Daniel's house, staying there a little bit more, just making small talk. Then the siblings head back to their house around 4 a.m., and that's where our story started, with Suzanne seeing the lights on and calling the police. When they arrived, they saw the lights on, front door unlocked, all mess in the library and window open. So Andreas is saying that they did go into the house, unlike what Suzanne had said before about just seeing the lights on and calling the police. He says that he saw a bunch of paper and a briefcase on the floor and open closets and drawers. Except he hadn't actually seen the briefcase because he didn't go inside the office because Suzanne didn't let him. The cops were able to ask the right questions and realized Andreas was telling them what Suzanne told him, not necessarily what he saw, which wasn't what the cops wanted to hear.
So their stories are all just all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, he's 15-year-old. His sister said, I saw this and this on the floor. He's just repeating himself. He's just repeating what his sister told him. But that's not what the cops are asking. The cops are asking what you saw with your own eyes.
Yeah. Plus, the way, from what you told me, the timeline, it sounds like there was a little bit of time unaccounted for where something could have happened.
Funny you say that. In a few paragraphs, you will see.
Yeah, I pick up on things pretty quick.
At this point, the interrogation gets a little weird. And look, I obviously know what happens in this case, and I'm glad it was solved, but I absolutely do not agree with the detective's conduct in this interview with Andreas. Let's keep in mind that he was a 15-year-old boy who had just lost both of his parents. So, when he finished telling his story, the cops didn't like that he was only replying to their questions. They wanted Andreas to be talking more and sharing more, which would be great, I get it, but they can't be mad if someone is literally replying to your questions and you feel it isn't enough. They decide, in my opinion, to be mean. While one of the agents told Andreas to tell the truth and not to hide anything, the other actually said, "Your dad was beaten a lot until death. He and your mom were alive when they got attacked and really suffered through. They were probably begging for their lives. Imagine hearing that from the detectives.
That's wild.
Yes, so pretty bad.
Yeah, that's I mean, I guess they're trying to do like good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
The opposite was bad cop, so...
Or like bad or badder cop, you know, but is there any of that illegal in Brazil?
No.
Okay. That's just a scare tactic.
Yeah, it's a scare tactic. They were not lying about anything. They were just trying to scare him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're pulling out all the cards, I guess.
Yeah. To make this whole interaction even weirder, Andreas asked them, "Do you have pictures of my parents, of what happened to them?"
There you go, man. There you go, bro. There you go, man. So the detectives are right. So, I mean, they're catching on pretty quick. This person sounds psycho.
The detective says he does, but he won't show to him. And Andreas say, "Louder. Why not? I want to see it." Okay, you want to see pictures of your parents' lifeless body? Nah. Well, even with this weird and suspicious question, the detectives turn down a notch and tell the young boy that the photos are too hard to look and that they know Andreas was not part of the crime, but that he knew more than he was leading on, and that it was time to speak up. That was enough pressure for Andreas. He told the officers that Daniel and Suzanne's relationship wasn't all roses. His parents were super against the couple being together because, in simple words, they felt Suzanne was too good for him. She was from a rich family, spoke 3 languages, was succeeding in law school, and the idea was for her to go to do her master's in Germany after graduation. Daniel was from a medium-low class family, didn't go to college, and according to Marisia's, Suzanne's mom, didn't really look like he wanted to work or do much. Andreas was the only one that liked Daniel and helped Suzanne lie to their parents. Before being taken to the precinct, Daniel and Suzanne asked Andreas not to say anything about Daniel. The boyfriend had just spent 1 month at Suzanne's house, while Manfred and Marisia were traveling overseas, and they were sure the crime would fall on him because of his strained relationship with the Richthofen and all the fingerprints he left in the house. But Andreas caved in the pressure by the detectives and told them everything, including this plea from his sister. Well, the interview was over. They milked Andreas as much as they could. Before moving on to Suzanne's interrogation room, let me tell you her love story. When Andreas turned 12 years old in 1999, Manfred gave him a miniature type of plane that needed to be built and could actually fly. The name of this hobby is aeromodeling. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah. He has a park nearby where a bunch of people fly there, like
Oh, really?
remote control helicopters and planes and stuff like that. So
Okay, so there you go. That's exactly it. On Google, it says aeromodeling is the activity involving design, development, and flying of small air vehicles. So Andreas took interest in that, and for his 12 years old birthday, Manfred gave him this plane. Manfred took the son and the unbilled gift to an aeromodeling center and asked, "Who is your best teacher?" Everyone pointed out to 18 years old Daniel. Daniel was an expert in aeromodeling. He actually got 5th place on the world competition that happened in Ukraine 1 year before. So he was really good.
yeah. He has some talent.
Suzanne wasn't with Manfred and Andreas that day, but as the older sister, she would be responsible to take Andreas to his weekly classes, and that's how she met Daniel. Suzanne didn't pay much attention to him at first, but 5 months later, they had their first kiss, and from then on, they were inseparable. Andreas loved his teacher/friend. Suzanne was madly in love for her new boyfriend, and Manfred and Marisia actually like him too, because Andreas used to be a quiet, shy little boy with few friends, and now, thanks to Daniel, he was more sociable and happy. So overall, it was a great time for everyone, and Daniel was a good finding. The young couple had a great start with not only Daniel, but with his whole family being welcomed to the big Brooklyn house for birthdays and barbecues. Andreas and Suzanne loved Daniel's family because they were loving and supportive. Manfred and Marisia were colder and more strict. There wasn't a hug or an I love you out of place or out of time. There was nothing spontaneous, and that's what they loved about Daniel's family. Only in 2001, with the couple dating for over a year, Manfred expressed he wasn't thrilled about his daughter's relationship anymore. He thought it was lasting longer than he thought, and soon Marisia joined him. They deemed their social and cultural differences unacceptable, which is just a better way to say they thought he was too poor and uneducated for their daughter. On Mother's Day, in May of 2002, Manfred and Suzanne had their biggest fight so far about her relationship, and he slapped Suzanne on her face, leaving the mark of his 5 fingers in her cheek.
Oh, dang.
She left the house, shocked, but when she got back, she promised her dad she would end things with Daniel, which was all Manfred wanted to hear. Except it wasn't true. From that moment on, Andreas was the only one in the house that knew the couple were still dating and helped cover his big sister's lies. Suzanne told her parents she was doing a teacher assistant type of job in her college, in which she needed to go some nights during the week, but that was not true. She was actually going to meet Daniel. It didn't matter how much her parents were against it or thought it was a teenage love dying out, Suzanne and Daniel kept going stronger than ever.
That's that real teenage love right there. Especially, and then, when you tell, for our age, or our generation, when our parents would tell us, don't date that person, what do? Now you want to do it even more, so.
You're like, if my parents don't like them, I like them even more.
Exactly.
So back to the interviews. While Andrea's interrogation was still going, Suzanne and Daniel were also being interviewed. Before they got called, while they were in the waiting room, guess what? More kisses and hugs between the two lovers. When they were called, they were separated in 2 different rooms. Suzanne was accompanied by a lawyer from her dad's work, and I'm not sure Daniel had anyone. I don't think he did. I think he was alone.
But Daniel is over 18, right?
Yes. So in 2002, Andreas was 15 and he was accompanied by a lawyer. Suzanne is 18 and Daniel is 21.
Okay.
Suzanne started telling her story, which was very similar to Andrea's story. On the day off, she said she went to Daniel's house around 5 p.m. They watched TV until 6, then went to Blockbuster. Remember her?
I do remember Blockbuster. That place was, that was the place to be on a Friday night.
That was a great place.
Yeah.
So they went to Blockbuster. They didn't really find any movies they liked, so they left to go to Daniel's older brother's house, Christian, who was 26 years old in 2002. They stayed there around 15 minutes and went back to Daniel's. At 10:30 p.m., they went to get Andreas as previously arranged. The couple dropped Andreas at the internet cafe, and at midnight, they went back to Suzanne's house to get the money she needed to go to the motel. She said she went upstairs, saw her parents sleeping in their room with the door open as usual, went to the library for a moment, then to the bathroom and left. The couple took a while to decide on what motel to go to, and they finally arrived at one at 1:30 a.m. They got the presidential suite and stayed there until 2:40 a.m., so about an hour. Even though they went to a motel, which, as I explained, is a place to have sex, she told the detectives that they did not do the deed that day. Oh my god, that was a tongue twister. But, so she said they did not have sex that day.
But wait, I guess I have a question now. Like, her story is they took them almost an hour to find the motel, and then they spent an hour at the motel.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just thinking, I'm like, well, there's like 2 hours there. And my follow-up question, which maybe you'll answer, is does this motel have like any cameras to like verify these timelines?
It's 2002.
Okay, so yeah, probably not. And you know what? It's a motel, so they probably wouldn't have cameras for like confidentialities and stuff.
You are stepping all over my script.
Oh, my bad.
Because when I read the story, when I heard about the story, that did not ring bells to me at all. Like the fact that it had like a 1 hour in the middle there. I was like, so what? So I would suck as a detective, period. After leaving the motel, they picked up Andreas, went back to Daniel's place where they let Andreas ride his motorbike a little more, then went back to their house at 4 a.m., where she says she found the front door open, kitchen and living room lights on, and library room messy. She went outside to the pool area, called her boyfriend, and he instructed her to call the police. So now she does say that she went inside instead of I just saw the lights on and called 190, which is police number in Brazil. When asked about possible suspects or who could ever wanted to do something like this, Suzanne explained that the maids never lasted more than 6 months in her house, and by the way, her mom and herself were followed by a blue car some time ago, and that some maids had stolen money from her house. She finished saying that her and Daniel were together for 3 years and her parents loved him. The relationship was great and there was no problem between her family and her boyfriend. I will not repeat this story again, but Daniel's interrogation went pretty much the same as Suzanne, with him also saying he had a great relationship with the Richthofen family.
So wait. So they both said the same story?
Yes. I mean, they were together, so the least I would expect they had a similar story.
Yeah, okay. So they both, it sounded like they were ready for the same story.
He gave his opinion to the detectives, saying he thought the murder/robbery was related to the maids that had previously worked in the house. Now, see, here's where you jumped. There were a few inconsistencies in their stories. Like, for example, Suzanne said they went inside Blockbuster, while Daniel said they didn't. He said that they decided to go to the motel that they ended up going before going back to Suzanne's house to get money, while Suzanne says they kept driving around not knowing where to go after stopping at her house. Nothing huge, but it was big enough for the cops to be suspicious of the couple. They were mainly suspicious about the 1.5 hour in between leaving Andreas at the internet cafe at midnight and arriving at the motel at 1:30 a.m.
There it is. You see, I just spotted it early.
See, here you go. Here's your 1.5 hours of nothingness. Next step of the investigation was to go to the places where Suzanne, Andreas, and Daniel used as an alibi and check if it matches their story. The owner of the internet cafe said that Andreas was a regular client, but he had never stayed that late playing as the night of the murders, because he arrived at midnight and left at 3 a.m. And the motel is the funniest thing. You know what they said when the cops went to check if Suzanne and Daniel were actually there? I'm asking you a question.
Oh, that's okay.
Just give me a cue. They're like, hey, I'm listening. What happened?
Okay. All right, start one more time. Sorry.
Do you know what they said to the cops when they were asked about Daniel and Suzanne's stay there?
No, what?
They said that the couple asked for a receipt after paying their bill. And that was the first time the motel ever printed a receipt, because no one had ever asked before. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, that's like creating a receipt. That's like creating a paper trail. Obviously, people are going to the motel for either secrecy, because most of them are probably cheating on somebody, or young kids trying to...
Or you just don't want, like, your parents to know or something. You just don't want...
Correct.
Yeah. Even if you do ask for a receipt for whatever reason, it doesn't come out as, like, motel something. It comes, like, as a gas station.
Yeah.
Further in, detectives found out that in September of that same year, cops had been called at the Richthofen house, and that was the third time overall that cops showed up there to break a fight. And guess who were the people fighting? Manfred and Daniel. So not so much of a good relationship as Suzanne said in her interrogation.
It's pretty clear that people don't like him, and I don't know, there's an hour and a half unaccounted for, so I think I know where this is headed. But I can't wait to hear the rest.
The investigation kept going, and now we introduce a third suspect, Daniel's brother, Christian. One day after the murders, not even 12 hours later, Christian bought a motorcycle for $3,600, and he paid in cash with US dollars.
Okay, and obviously now, I know that the dollar is like 5 times, stronger than Brazil. But what was it back then at that time? 2.5. Okay, so it was still pretty expensive.
Yeah, I didn't even know you could pay with dollar bills if you're in Brazil, but I guess you can.
Mm-hmm.
He put the bike on a friend's name so it wouldn't be traced to him, but the detectives quickly found out about it. The detectives tapped their phones hoping they would incriminate themselves, but nothing came out of this. Daniel actually said in one of many calls, "Let's not talk on the phone because it may be tapped." so they knew the cops were looking at them. On November 2nd, detectives decided to go back to the house where the murders happened and have a fresh look at it. And when they rang the doorbell, they were welcomed by Suzanne in a bikini and a cigarette on her mouth. Daniel, Andreas, and some people were in the pool, just having fun.
This is wild.
So all this is happening pretty fast. The police is called on the early morning of October 31st. The family were already interrogated, and now 2 days later, they are going back to the house to see if they can find any new clues. Inside, Suzanne put some clothes on and walked the officials through the house. And when they arrived at the crime scene, she says, "Well, here's where my parents died," almost like she was just giving a tour of her house.
If you're a normal person, you ain't staying in that house. I don't even know if I knew just a random person died in a house, I don't know if I would stay there, let alone my own family member.
I agree. On Sunday, the 3rd of November, was Suzanne's birthday, and she went to her family farm with Daniel and some friends. While they were celebrating her 19th year of life, the precinct taking care of her parents' case were full-on working. There was no rest. They interviewed lots of people this day, friends and family of the victims, which just gave them more confirmation and details about what they already knew. Marisia and Manfred did not like Suzanne and Daniel's relationship. Marisia threatened to disown her daughter if she kept dating Daniel. By the time the crimes were committed, Suzanne was lacking at school, getting bad grades and not studying. Manfred had shared with some friends how he gave, and Suzanne just didn't care. He was thinking of sending her to Germany, where he had family, to see if that would help Suzanne refocus on her education and leave Daniel behind. With his wife, they decided to wait for the final exams of Suzanne's college, and then they would definitely send her to Europe. At nighttime of that Sunday, Daniel, Suzanne, and Andreas had dinner at the siblings' uncle's house, and at some point, Daniel said, "This will be a hard crime to solve, because it was done by a gang. The police won't be able to unravel anything." Where does the gang came from?
I don't know. I think he's just toying with them now. I don't know.
Suzanne was called for a second interview the day after her birthday, and she kept the same story. But this time, she says that her parents liked Daniel, but wanted her to go find someone better. She also said her dad was having affairs and was an alcoholic. None of these statements turned out to be true. Things were getting tight for the suspects, and by November 5th, Christian had returned the motorcycle, claiming it wasn't working properly. He had the bike for only 5 days. That same day, cops decided to go back a third time to the Brooklyn house, this time to check the garbage bin, the big one located outside the house. And with that, I have a comment. 5 days to think about checking the bin?
Oh, yeah.
I feel that should have been done on the day of the murders, when the bodies were still there.
I mean, you're talking about the big bin, once the garbage truck picks up?
Exactly, like the bins that stay outside, not like little bins inside the house.
Yeah, that's true.
It was still like in their house, like in the vicinities of their house. And they were lucky that in 5 days, the trash truck had not come.
That's just pure luck then. I mean, that's great then. But that's, to your point, it's stupid. How did they miss that?
Yes.
I guess maybe it's one of those, like, if someone's going to kill them, they're not going to be that dumb. And just put it in their own garbage and just put it right in front of the, driveway as we drive in. Like, they're not going to tow with this. Maybe they just believe that it's impossible that someone would be that bold.
Yeah, well, the detectives went 5 days later, and like I said, luckily for them, the trash was still there untouched. Under the bloody sheets and mattress, they found jewelry boxes. Which, again, another comment, they did not take the bloody sheets or the mattress as evidence. They just left it. So,
oh, that's terrible.
So Suzanne, Andreas, and the maid decided to just throw it away.
Fair, but...
yeah, I would throw away too.
That's like a crime scene, man.
I also thought that, but let's think about it. Every person that dies on a bed, would they take the mattress?
Yeah, I guess that's true, but... ugh. I mean, I'm not going to be the one that moves the mattress out. You better get, I thought maybe like a crime scene unit would remove it or something like that.
You have to hire them. The cops will not do that for you.
I definitely would. I'm not going to do that job.
Well, under the bloody sheets and mattress, they found the jewelry boxes. Suzanne was kind of looking from afar at the detectives while they were digging her garbage bin, and now she comes outside and says, "Hey detectives, the maids wrongly threw some stuff away. Can I keep these jewelry boxes as something to remember my parents for?" The officers say yeah, sure, and she took it. However, here is the kicker. These boxes were the type that only fits the jewelry that came inside of it, because they are shaped in that format. They have those cutouts inside in the shape of a ring or a necklace or something.
And she wants the box or she wants the jewelry? Or both?
No, not the jewelry. The boxes were on the trash, but she's asking for those boxes back.
Okay.
So, Suzanne couldn't use those boxes to put other things in it. She could only use it for those specific jewelry. And if those jewelries were stolen in the robbery, the only reason she would want the boxes back is if she had those items with her. That was the moment these two detectives were officially convinced Suzanne was involved in her parents' murder.
What an idiot. She gave herself up by asking for it back.
It was showtime now. On the night of November 7th, so just 1 week after the murders, the detectives called Suzanne, Daniel, and Christian back to the precinct and separated them in 3 different rooms. Each room were filled with different people, and all of them were trying to make someone talk. They would sometimes get out of the room, go to another one, see if there were any improvements, and so on. The detectives' goal that day was a confession. Doesn't matter from whom, but they were not leaving without getting the truth. The night came and went, and nothing had happened. The agents were giving up, so they went to Suzanne's room and told her she and her lawyer could just leave.
Oh, she had her lawyer there the whole time?
Yes, she did.
Oh, well, it's going to be hard to break someone that has her lawyer there.
They got up, started walking towards the door, and with her parking tickets in hand, they are stopped by one of the detectives. He says, "Come back, Christian is about to confess." The agents always knew Christian was their weakest link, so they really drilled on him first. He was the one who bought the motorcycle with dollar money when he had no job or really a good reason to have so much foreign money in his possession. He was the third wheel on the relationship, so detectives were using the tactics of, "You're gonna get arrested and Suzanne and Daniel will live happily ever after. Do you think they will care or try to save you?
Yeah.
You're going down by yourself."
They're trying to separate the weakest link.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess these 3 people have to really have their story straight and hold firm that no one's going to break. But when you're looking at this much evidence, I don't know.
I mean, there is no evidence. There are a lot of suspicions because they were just behaving very weirdly, but there is no DNA, there is no fiber, there is no evidence.
Yeah, but these kids don't know that. That's what I mean. You know, in my mind, I would think, oh, if I keep getting called in, then they have something on me they're trying to get out of me.
At 6:30 a.m. of now November 8th, Christian started to sing like a bird. Suzanne confessed after him, and lastly Daniel, so they all end up confessing. With each of their testimony telling the same story in different points of views, the detectives were able to have a play-by-play of what happened 1 week before in the Richthofen house. Now I'm gonna tell you what happened that night, and after it, I will give you some more interesting information each of them said in their confessions outside of the main story. And as I said in the beginning of the episode, I will be using the 2 books about this case as the main source, since it has so many details. And now that you guys already know the guilty people, I can say the name of the books. One of the books is called Suzanne, Murderer and Manipulative. And the other book is called The Fifth Commandment, which is...
Not shot, not kill?
Isn't the one you're going to respect your father and mother? I thought you would know that. That's why I didn't want to say the name of the book before.
I don't know the commandments by number. I just know it's one of the commandments. Like, I know them collectively. I don't know them in order.
Fifth commandment. Honor thy father and thy mother.
Okay, there you go.
So that's why I was like, I'm not going to say the name of the book in the beginning, or else they're going to know it's one of the kids that did it.
I would have thought thou shalt not kill. And I'm like, okay, that's a big one too. You know, they broke that commandment as well.
Yeah. At around 11 p.m. at the night of October 30th, 2002, Suzanne arrives in front of her house, presses the button on her remote control to open the garage door, and goes in. The car was being driven by Daniel just a few minutes before. but he was so nervous that Suzanne made him stop and change seats. She closes the garage door behind her, and before the trio comes out of the car, they go over the plan one more time. Suzanne reminds that they have to do everything in less than 30 minutes, and using everything she learned by watching CSI, she takes nylon socks and latex gloves out of her purse and gives to the brothers, so they wouldn't leave any fingerprints in the house. Christian tries to talk some sense into her and say they shouldn't go further with the plan, that there was still time to give up, that it wasn't fair killing her parents. But Suzanne cuts him off and says, "I don't know if it's fair or not. All I know is that while they are still alive, I will never be happy."
So she's like orchestrated it all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a wild...
No, don't say the B word.
I ain't gonna say it, but you know what I want to. That's a wild B word right there.
Christian tried to give up a few more times after that, but in the end, his brotherly love spoke louder, and he just couldn't leave his brother to do his horrific act and take blame by himself.
Peace out, bro. Any one of my brothers asked me that question, I'm looking at me, man, you're on your own on this one. Sorry about that.
And that's actually what happened. Daniel came to him. Christian was like, "No, like, you're crazy, don't do that." So Daniel said, "I'll do it by myself." So Christian was like, "Okay, I'll do it then."
No.
Because I will not let you go down by yourself. So that's a brother right there.
He's better than me. I'm letting both my brothers go down quick. I'll point fingers. I'll start looking.
Okay, well, Christian took the bats out of the trunk, and those bats were actually made by Daniel. With his talent of building and fixing small planes for his aeromodeling hobby, Daniel made the bats out of iron and wood, so it was metal looking on the outside but wood on the inside, making the bat heavier and noise-free. So Daniel even thought about the bats has to be noise-free.
This is insane.
But you see, he's a talented person.
Yeah, he's...
There's a lot of bad things to be said about these three killers, but
yeah.
I gotta give to this Daniel. If he could just kept going on this whole aero modeling, building things, he would be very successful, I think.
I guess Suzanne just, got into his head or something because, from what it sounds like so far, it sounds like she's like convincing the brothers to do it.
I can talk more about their relationship specifically later, but there was a lot of Suzanne in it, but there was a lot of Daniel in it too.
Okay.
But okay, so he built the bats. The whole bat exterior was made out of iron, except for the part where the hands go, which was also made out of wood, because they wanted something they could repeatedly swing and not lose grip. And just to explain a little further, when I say bat, I don't mean like baseball, but just something long, but not as thin as a stick. Also, the tip of the bat had a little L shape, similar to a crowbar, and you will see soon why I'm explaining all this. After getting all the materials needed, they get out of the car, walk by the garage and pool, and go inside the house. Suzanne quietly walks upstairs to the second floor and makes sure her parents were soundly asleep. They were, so she flicked the lights on and off 3 times, telling the brothers downstairs that it was showtime. For the next minute or so, I'll give details about how the murders went down that can be a little gory. So if you don't want to know or feel you may not have the stomach for it, please skip about a minute of it. Okay, so they go upstairs into the bedroom with Daniel staying next to Manfred and Christian to Marisa. They were both sleeping on their sides looking at the window, which was Christian's direction. Just like horror movies, the couple moved a little in the bed and kind of woke up with the noise, even opening their eyes for a split second, but there was nothing much they could see or do or even understand. Next thing you know, Daniel and Christian were swinging those bats in their heads. Daniel was actually the one who started the beating on Manfred, and Christian followed suit on Marisa. While Manfred got knocked out instantly, Marisa got logical for a second and tried to defend herself by putting her hands in front of her face, but not only it didn't work, she also broke some of her fingers. The weapon being used and the strength of the brothers were so strong that pieces of brain matter and blood were scattered in the nightstand, walls, and roof of the room. In one of many beatings, the L tip of the bat got hooked in Marisa's head, so Christian had to put some force to get it off, spreading more blood and brain matter across the room. Because Maurizia was not dying as fast and easy as Manfred, Christian increased his swing's strength to the point that Maurizia's face was disfigured. He beats her 20 times before stopping. With the worst part over, the killers were tired and hoping to hear some silence, since the couple were dead. I mean, after so much beating, they had to be. However, they heard anything but silence. The book explains that because the victims suffered brain trauma, blood came running down into the nasopharynx, probably not saying that right, which is located right behind our noses and is responsible for taking air from the nose into the right places like lungs. But since this area was slowly being filled with blood, instead of dying right away from the beating, they were slowly dying from suffocation. This act provokes a horrible and loud noise that kind of sounds like snoring, but an agonizing one. The noise will only stop when the person dies, which can take some time. Both Manfred and Maurizia were making non-stop noises, the type that you can hear your own thoughts or focus or anything else.
This is terrible.
Daniel got some face towels from the bathroom and put water in it, making it damp. They put the towels on their victims' faces, hoping it would muffle the noise, but it doesn't work. Daniel ran downstairs to the kitchen, get a water jar, went back upstairs, filled the jar with water from the bathroom sink, and dumped it on Manfred's face. It worked. Christian got the jar and also dumped on Maurizia's face, hoping for the same outcome, but Maurizia was taking longer to die. Nothing was stopping the noises coming out of her throat. Now it was Christian's turn to go downstairs and try something. He found Suzanne and asked her where he could find trash bags. She told him he got it, went back to their room, and wrapped Maurizia's head in the trash bag, pushing the towel deep in her mouth and closing the bag on her neck. Silence at last. Later on interviews, the two brothers said they covered the victims' faces because they didn't want Andreas seeing his parents like that. Moments before, while Christian was fighting against Maurizia's noises, Daniel had already started messing up the room to make it look like a robbery. He opened the closet door, where he knew there was a hidden compartment, opened it up, and took all the jewelry and a gun that was stored there. He threw the jewelry everywhere on the floor, took the ammunition and gun, and threw it on the bed. This gun could hold 6 bullets, but there were only 5 in it. And that's because a few weeks before the murders, Daniel and Suzanne tested the idea of killing her parents with a gun.
Oh, dang. So they've been prepping this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
This is just some crazy stuff, and I don't know what goes through your mind. You know, not only to do something like that, but then to drag your brother in to do that too, and then, I don't know, it's kind of wild.
In a sunny Saturday morning where everyone had left and Suzanne was home alone, she called Daniel to meet her there. They got a brick, wrapped in a cloth, and put it in the parents' bedroom. Daniel got the gun, and Suzanne left the house, placing herself in the middle of her street. She sent Daniel a text saying, "Okay." And then she heard a small bang. She ran back home and told him they could not kill her parents by gunshots because she definitely heard that outside in the streets. And that was a busy Saturday morning. If they planned to do that in the nighttime of a weekday, the shots would feel much louder. Going back, before going downstairs, Christian took the gun and ammo from the bed, put the ammunition in the gun, and placed it on the floor, next to Manfred's body. They were trying to trick the police into thinking it was a homicide, suicide type of situation. But I don't really understand why they even tried that, because a quick and closer look to the bodies would tell police that they were not killed by gunshots.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it looks like a pretty poor effort to try to throw the cops off when it doesn't take an expert to see that that's not a bullet wound or a bullet shot or anything like that. So I really don't know what that was. I think maybe at that point they realized what they'd done and they're trying to...
they were just trying everything in the books to...
Yeah, they think at this point they're panicking and just saying, hey, let's see if this will work. Let's see if this works or something. Because, they just brutally murdered 2 people. And this is what they're coming up with. So they're clearly, not right in the head is what's going on.
Yeah. Let me go back now to some minutes ago, just when the murders were about to take place. Suzanne didn't stay outside the room watching what was about to happen. She may not have been the killer per se, but she also had a role in this crime. After turning on the hallway light switch and signaling the brothers into the bedroom, Suzanne went downstairs, put a glove in her left hand because she was a lefty, and went to the kitchen pantry. She got some black trash bags, went to the library, and placed it on the top of a blue rug, which was where Christian found them when he asked for some bags. She then sat on the couch and put her hands on her ears so she wouldn't hear her parents screaming. A little later, still in the library, she got a leather folder her parents had hidden there, opened it up using a secret code, took money out, and closed the folder. When the siblings were done in the bedroom, they started making their way downstairs when Daniel realized they forgot the bats in the room. He went back to get it. Christian kept going downstairs, and when he met Suzanne, she asked, "What now, Chris? What should we make a mess out of?" They started taking things out of the library closets and throw them on the floor when Daniel comes through the door. Suzanne looks at him in the eyes and asks, "Is it over?" He says yes. "Did it work?" He says yes. With no time to waste, Daniel realized that they needed to open the letter folder some other way, because only someone close to the family would know the code to open it up. He goes to the kitchen, gets a knife, goes back to the library, cut one of the sides of the folder, and throws it back on the floor. Lastly, they went to the study room next to the library and made more mess, throwing books and documents everywhere on the floor. Suzanne gave the money that she got from the leather folder to Christian because they had previously agreed that this would be his payment for the crime. Inside the folder there were 8,000 reais, 3,000 euros, and $5,000. And if we convert all that to dollar, it would be something like $10,000. The trio left the house through the front door, and Daniel washed the bats in the family pool. They changed their clothes to new ones and put all the old clothes and things that could be considered evidence inside one of the black trash bags. Daniel and Christian decided to play a little more with the police and went back inside the house, but this time through a window in the library, leaving footprints behind. Pretty obvious by now that they were trying to fake a robbery followed by murder, which in Brazil we have a one-word name for it, but I don't believe there is one in English, because when I used Google Translate to check it, it just translated to robbery, which is only a small portion of everything that happened here.
Oh yeah, we don't have like a crime that says this is a robbery and a murder.
Yeah.
It's just two separate offenses, so they could be charged for two separate crimes technically.
Yeah. All the story I just told you, from they arriving to the house until they leaving, lasted less than 30 minutes, just like Suzanne wanted. Inside the car and out of the house, they got rid of the trash bags in a nearby intersection, which, by the way, are the streets I used to drive every single day. It's my house streets. I can't believe they just threw it there. If you ask me where the things are in that street, I know everything.
So it's right near your house?
Very near my house.
So if you wanted to, when you go back, if you see,
go there, yes, I can.
So you could see the house? Oh, dang.
Yeah, wait, I have a interesting another tidbit too coming up.
Okay.
Christian was dropped off also nearby and went home by foot. Daniel and Suzanne finished their night in the motel, where they would use to establish an alibi. The book says that when they got there, Suzanne told Daniel, "Finally, our lives are about to start." In Christian's confession, he says the couple started planning the murders about 2 months before, and the reason was simple. They didn't like how Suzanne's parents treated Daniel and were against their relationship. Daniel asked his brother to be a part of the murder, and even though he didn't want to and thought it was crazy, he just couldn't say no to his little brother. He says Andreas is not involved and that it was Suzanne's idea to get him outside of the house that night so he wouldn't be tangled in this mess. He finished saying that the trio plan was to open a business together with all the money Suzanne was going to inherit from her parents' will. In Suzanne's confession, she says she never imagined they would get caught because she was so confident they did everything right.
Yeah, they made a lot of mistakes though.
No, but stop to think about it. There is no evidence. There is nothing tying them up. The problem, two things. One, their behavior, just off from the beginning. And second, and I believe most damning, was Christian buying that motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if he hadn't bought it, this case would still be solved, but maybe just not as fast.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. Their behavior is pretty much what sealed their deal.
Yeah. Suzanne corroborated with Christian, saying that Andreas didn't know anything about it. But she denies having any plans of opening a business with her parents' money, saying that the reason behind the murders were never financial. Lastly, Daniel's confession didn't bring much new information, but he said that yes, they were all making plans on what they were going to do with the money. So only Suzanne was denying this small part, which in the end didn't make any difference. The three of them were officially arrested and were sent to prison. 2 weeks after the murder and 1 week after the confessions, detectives did a reconstitution of the crime. Do you guys have that word in English? Reconstitution?
I don't think so. Reconstitution? I mean, it sounds like a word. I'm not saying it is, but I don't know.
I found it online at Google, but I don't know if you guys don't do that here or it's just not that word exactly being used. But when you say that you're gonna do a crime reconstitution in Brazil, that means you're gonna go back to the crime scene and try to plan out how that thing happened. Mm-hmm. They always call the suspects in it, but they are not obligated to accept it. So this time, for example, since the three killers had already confessed, they accepted. They said, I'll go and I'll show you exactly what happened.
They take them to the crime scene?
Yeah, they take them back to their house, and they're gonna do a play-by-play, like, I walk upstairs, I turned left, I did this.
Oh, wow, no.
But in the end, they can deny it too. Like, let's suppose that they had not get caught yet, or they were just number one suspect. They could have said, I don't want to go, and the police would still go without them and just see if the story that the suspect is telling you makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but they decided, like I said, they accepted because they already confessed, there was nothing to hide, so they all went. And here is my interesting little story. So, when I was writing the script, I had this vivid memory of being in front of this house, like with a bunch of other people screaming and just like a bunch of regular people. And I'm like, am I making this memory just because it was close to my home or that actually happened? So I called my mom and I asked, did you take me and my sister to the front of Suzanne's house on the day of the reconstitution? And she said, yes, I did. I was 10 years old. My sister was 8. So I asked her, why did you do that? And she said, I took you guys there so you learn what you don't do with your parents.
Oh, wow. That's wild. It must have been right down the street too from your house.
Yeah, it was pretty close, but I think
Wait,
it
so
was...
you walked to the house?
No, inside the house, no. It was full of reporters and other people, just like my mom, just like a curious... little person.
But you were there with your mom and your sister.
I think she got us from school. She picked us up from school, and I just it's like a 2-second memory. It's not even like a full on.
Hey, you have it though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just remember like kind of parking the car or kind of going out of the car for a little bit and just hearing like commotion and people screaming. And my mom said that everybody was like killer, like murderer, and like horrible or something like cold. I just kind of remember that scene and going back to the car and leaving. But my mom saying like, oh yes, I took you there so you learn what not to do with your mom. I was like, well, I did not get that from that. So
that's wild though. That's pretty cool though that you're like part of history. You know what I mean? Like we wouldn't say that's great history, but I mean you were close enough to where you could see the suspect. You saw one of the people that orchestrated. You saw the house where the crime happened.
We can pass by the house now. It's there. It was never demolished or sold or anything.
Yeah, but you were there when the reporters and the actual killer was there, or one of the killers were there. Yeah.
As I was saying, the police booked the reconstitution. All 3 killers accepted, and in different times, of course, they went and do it. All 3 of them did the reconstitution in separate times without meeting each other, and Suzanne's turn was the most relaxed one. First, she didn't participate or saw the crimes in any way, so her role was easy to explain. But also because she was just fine during all this time. She wasn't nervous or regretful or anything. She was just telling a story, very matter of fact. For some reason, Andreas was in the house when it was Christian's turn to do the reconstitution. and they met each other in the hallway. Just before Christian going to the bedroom and start telling the most important and worst part of the story, in a weird and interesting turn of events, Andreas and Christian look at each other and hug in a very emotional hug. Christian gives a kiss in Andreas' cheek, and the hug is interrupted by one of the officers, taking Andreas out of that area. Which I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I would hug my parents' killer.
I can't knock him for it, but yeah, I can only speak on my behalf. And if someone killed my parents, I don't think I'd be hugging them. Oh man, what's up? How you doing? Oh, hope you're doing good.
Mm-hmm. The worst reconstitution was Daniel's. He was barely able to do it, having to stop a few times so he could get himself together. He was bawling, non-stop crying, and was only able to keep it going by asking one of the officers to stand next to him and hold his hand throughout the whole thing. Christian also cried and had his moments, but Daniel was by far the most heartbreaking one. In Brazil, you usually use the detectives present at the reconstitution to play roles. So they had a girl cop and a guy cop doing the roles of Manfred and Marisia laying down on the bed. Daniel's breaking factor was when he was in the couple's room telling the detectives how he killed Manfred. He looked at the cop laying down and said, "He looks way too much like Manfred, I can't do this." And he had a full-on breakdown. They were only able to continue after some glass of water, breathing exercises, praying, and changing Manfred-looking cop to another one to do their role. Their trial only happened in 2006, and after 5 days of court hearings, the jury used another 3 days to come back with their obvious sentencing, which was guilty for the three of them. Suzanne and Daniel were sentenced to 39 years, and Christian to 38 years and a half. So, just 6 months less. I don't know why.
I mean, 6 months is 6 months, but I mean, when you're looking at 39 years, I guess 6 months ain't nothing.
So, this part may be a little confusing, but I still want to try to explain it. In Brazil, our prison works in a progression systems with 3 levels: closed, semi-open, and open. Closed is the one just like USA and most countries. You get arrested and that's your life now. You're in prison 24/7. Depending on good behavior or type of crime or how long you have been in prison, you can qualify to the next level, which is semi-open, which means you can have occasional exits. So maybe on a holiday, like you can go out and come back to the prison the next day. Or you can actually work, so you treat the prison as your house. You go to work, come back to the prison, sleep, and do it all over again the next day. And then you have the third and last level, which is open. This is almost the same as being completely free, with the difference being that you have to still follow some rules. And that's why I believe this level in American terms would be the parole option. So you're out, but you can't be on the streets after some time, you can travel or move far away, so you still have to make some court appearances and follow some rules.
That's parole. That sounds very closely like parole.
So USA has closed and parole, but I think you guys do not have the semi-open one.
No, we do. It's
do?
very rare. It's not a lot of prisons that do it, and there's not a lot of inmates that get it, from what I know. I do know that there are some prisons that offer, like, for well-behaved people and people that apply and stuff like that. Like, you go to work and you go back to prison at nighttime.
Okay, so that's pretty much what we have here as well.
Yeah.
So in 2002, they were arrested. In 2006, that was the trial where they were officially sentenced to their 39 years. And in 2013, the brothers went into semi-open. And in 2017, Christian was the first one to get into the open level and left prison.
And when?
2017.
Oh man, so he served...
So it was like 15 years.
Yeah, about 15 years.
Yeah.
Not even. Oh, that's terrible.
However, in 2018, he was arrested again with the charges of bribing cops. And I believe he is still in prison to this day.
What was he bribing? What was he bribing cops for?
Because he got out and apparently he got into like a fight on a bar and I guess he had a gun. I honestly don't remember the story properly, but when the cops came, he was like, "Hey, I'll give you money so you don't put me in prison again because I'm on parole. And I guess he just got good, honest cops because they were like, nope, you're going to prison, and now you have one more charge, which is bribing me. In 2018, Daniel was able to get parole and is now living his life married with someone not Suzanne. He actually got married to this other lady while in prison in 2016. And now that he's out, they are still together. Suzanne was only able to go to the semi-open level in 2015, and in 2020, so just last year, she tried to go to the parole level, but it was denied by the judges. Last month, September of 2021, Suzanne was granted permission to go to college. She is now studying biomedicine and will be using an ankle brace in her classes. According to a few articles, Suzanne will probably be able to move to the parole level only in the year 2030. The main reason she was denied going to the parole level was because she didn't pass a psychological test, which showed she was egocentric, narcissistic, and didn't have any regrets of her crimes. That's why that book that I told you that is called Suzanne, a Murderer and Manipulative, is because everybody around her say that she uses people. And that is said about her with Daniel. She really just didn't want her parents alive anymore, so she actually told Daniel that her father was abusing her sexually. And that was extremely untruth, but that's what got Daniel going. Like, Daniel was also kind of annoyed about the whole having to hide the relationship and her parents not accepting it, but his turning point was when she said, my father is abusing me and that's why I want him gone. That's when he said, okay, I'll do that. I'll do it. Let's do it.
I guess that could trigger someone, especially if you love someone. Like, I guess the way he did, maybe, he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. No, they were both head over heels between each other. That was that crazy. I don't even think it's love. It's some type of addiction.
Yeah, agreed.
And when I said before, like, I do believe Suzanne is, of course, the main one to blame, and she is manipulative, but the book says that Daniel was also very dramatic, I guess. That's not really the word, but he would say, like, if you ever break up with me, I'll kill myself. Or, I can't be without you. You have to be with me at all times. She would go to college and he would be like, no, come here. F college.
Yeah. So he was very attached, very attached.
Yes. Every time she would say something like, oh yeah, maybe we cannot see each other this week. Oh, I can't live without you. If you don't come see me, like, I'll throw myself out of a bridge. If I live without your love, I can't live.
So it's just like almost like a perfect storm. Someone that's very manipulative and someone that's easily attached. And when they attach hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he was also being some type of manipulative, because if you say those things to someone, they're going to be like, okay, I can never break up with you because you can actually go and kill yourself and I don't want to be blamed for this.
That's true. Yeah, it's just two toxic people found each other.
Yes, exactly. That's the word, two toxic people.
And unfortunately, two innocent people had to pay the price.
Yes. So actually, 3 people. Because we can't forget about the person who most lost in all the situation after the victims, of course. Yes.
The little brother, yeah.
Andreas von Richthofen was only 15 years old when he lost his parents for murder and his sister for prison. The weeks and months after that, he still lived in the mansion by himself. And according to the maid, the only employee of the house, he treated her horrible. And only 3 months later, she quit because she couldn't take it. I'm not sure if Andreas was already like a spoiled little kid, or if the murders and everything that happened really made him into like a bad person, which I would completely understand. But apparently he would treat this maid so bad that she lasted 3 months and she left. In the same period, he had moments where he was supporting Suzanne, even visiting her in prison, because he didn't want to lose the only person left of his immediate family. But other moments he would turn against her. After the maid quit, Andreas went to live with his uncle and grandmother, and since then, little is known about his life. We do know that he was very smart. You need to do a test to get into colleges in Brazil, similar to a SATs, and Andreas got 3rd place on this test, getting into the same college his parents once graduated from.
Oh, wow.
The one that I said it was super hard to get in.
Yeah. So it's just a smart group of people.
Very smart. He was an excellent student and later got approved for a chemistry PhD. Everything academically seemed to be looking good for him, but I guess it was enough to erase his past traumas. In 2015, in his last public interview, all he said is he felt anger towards the three killers, just calling the three killers without even naming them. In 2017, 3 houses were broken into, and on the 4th time, the owner of the house was able to catch the assailant in action, so he called the cops. The man looked homeless and he looked scared and out of it, but not violent. When people asked him questions, he would only say, "You do not want to know about my life." He was only recognized as Andreas when he arrived in the hospital, with dirty and ripped clothes and bruises on his legs. He was transferred to a rehab for alcohol and drug addicts, where he stayed for 1 month. This is the last news anyone have from Andreas. He went completely out of the grid after this incident.
Damn. Who knows where he's at, or even if he's alive.
I hope his uncle is with him. Nowadays, he would be like 32, something like that. He would be like 33.
Yeah, that's sad. He's had such a tough life as a kid.
Yeah, so the mansion is still there to this day. As far as I know, it was never sold or demolished or anything. And there is also no news about what happened to the family money, the inheritance. If Andrea took it, we know for a fact that Suzanne does not have access to that money because, duh. But we don't know if Andreas took it, if the uncle took it, we just don't know. And that's the story of the von Richthofen family, more known as the Suzanne von Richthofen case.
That's one for the books, man.
That's a crazy story, right?
Yeah. Anytime you tell me about, your own kids getting involved in murder and killing their parents, that's very rare for that to happen, especially kids this young.
I think the closest one that you guys would have, Americans, would be the Melendez brother.
Yeah.
I mean, they both killed their parents, so it wasn't because of relationship or anything. They just really didn't like their parents because they were too strict.
Yeah, I guess I can't really, Like I said, it's so rare, I can't really even think about any other stories that can come to my head, so.
No, but yeah, I know it's not that common, but this one just got, like I said, it has happened before in Brazil. It has happened ever since, but this one just got too famous. And in the last month, a movie came out of this case, so the case got traction again. Like, it was always famous, but it was kind of dormant. And then the movie came out, and everybody now is talking about Suzanne again. Especially because now she's going out, she's doing her college, so people are like, it's almost like she's a famous person.
Imagine going to college and the person next to you is Suzanne.
Uh-huh. I know.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised and I guess, frankly, a little upset that they got out so early.
Yeah, I guess good behavior really goes a long way in Brazil.
I guess, because, man, you do something that brutal here, you're not getting out in good behavior.
We could go into a whole new episode just talking about laws in Brazil. In Brazil, there is no death penalty. In Brazil, there is no life in prison. The reason why they got 39 years of prison is because that's the max sentence anyone can have.
So why don't they should have at least stuck to that max sentence instead of giving them out 15 years later.
They have a rule that if anybody completes at least 1/6 of your time, you can be eligible to the semi-open level. That doesn't mean you're gonna get it, because it all depends if you have been good in the prison, good behavior, or haven't got into any more confusion, but you are eligible. Just like we hear sometimes, this person was arrested and she's gonna be eligible for parole after 15 years. That doesn't mean she's gonna get it, but that means she can try.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's some cases, this is always my opinion, and of course I could always get people that disagree, but I mean, you're gonna do something that brutal.
I actually think it's the opposite. I have no problem in my mind of making them 3 leave. I don't think they will ever kill again.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's okay, like, oh yeah, just go live your life and we are super good with you, like I love you, like, no. But at the same time, the whole idea of prison is that you're gonna go pay for your crimes, and if you go out, you paid. I can't keep always looking at you and be like, you already paid, but I'm still gonna keep beating you for it.
Yeah.
And by what they said, by the way especially Suzanne, not as much. I think Suzanne, every psychologist say, it's not that she's gonna kill again, but it's really gonna depend, since she's like a manipulative, egocentric, narcissistic, and blah blah, it really all gonna depend on her environment. She cannot be put in an environment similar to what she had 20 years ago, like strict, with people bossing her around. She needs to be kind of in her own environment. In Christian and Daniel, I do not believe they will ever kill again.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think they'll kill again either. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I know, but I think if you're gonna commit a crime like that, you gotta do.
Yeah, I mean, they did around 15 years each.
Hey, that's just that we could go into a whole other topic about that.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm not saying what is
yeah.
good and what is not. I'm just saying they did at least stay like more than 10 years, which I already see that kind of as a win. Because sometimes people go like 8 years, 6 years.
Yeah,
and
but
I'm
they
like,
don't do
what?
that for murder. Murder, you should be 20 years. You just took someone's life.
Yeah.
So 15 years, I don't know. For me, it's a little too short. But thank you very much for telling me that story, though. Like that was a good one, and obviously, thank you for putting the time together and the episode together for my birthday. It's much appreciative, and yeah, just great storytelling. It was entertaining, but like I said, I feel sorry for the two parents. No way do I think they deserve it, and
yes, that's
I'm
horrible.
looking forward to the next few episodes. Obviously, I know you're not going to do many English episodes, but I do appreciate and love that you included me in this one. And
I mean, if people listen or if people like it, I'll definitely do one again. I don't mind. I like it.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe this is definitely something.
We'll see if people like you.
Yeah, but this is definitely something up your avenue, and I can see the happiness that brings. So I'm glad that I'm glad to be a part of it. And hey, if you just want me to be behind the scenes, I got you there.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, thank you for participating as well, and happy birthday. This was a lot of work, but a very cheap gift from my side too. So I'm glad that you liked it.
No, it was really appreciated. Yeah, I really do like it, and thanks again for putting this together, and giving me a performance, or showing me, or telling me a story. This is
yes,
a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. I love you.
Love you too.
Okay, that's it.
Talk to you later.